Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just getting to it. It's starting to get those cold fall days, but I just hope that at this time next year, it's one of those cold fall days. But I'm spending the cold fall day at Citi Field.
Yeah. I hear you. I was looking at, all over Twitter today and seeing the, even just the last couple of days too, and seeing that, yesterday was the anniversary of the Robin Ventura Grand Slam single from 1999. And, today was the anniversary.
Which, by the way, that game I was at.
Were you at that game, really?
I was at that game. I still remember the on and off rain throughout the game. I don't know, it was like drizzly. I don't know. I don't know how they were somehow able to get this despite the on and off rain. They were getting the game. They got that game in. There was no stoppage of play. They were getting that game in. It was on and off game, but I think I got a little wet. I was still like stoked after that grand single game. I may have woke up my mom and sis come when I walked in my house in Woodside at the time where we were living at the time in Woodside, when I was stoked about getting to see the Mets win that game that on that grand single. I was just stoked. I think I even transferred the VHS copy of that game to DVD.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite games of all time. I remember being a kid. I was like 12 years old, sitting on my bed watching that. I believe it was a Sunday night. And that was just a crazy game, obviously, into the late hours of the night, thanks to, a very, very crazy game going into the, just very awesome. Robin Ventura, Grand Slam single, October 17th, 1999. One of the best moments that we've seen from the Mets. And then even today was the anniversary of Game 6 of the 2006 NLCS, where the Mets forced Game 7 by winning. Jose Reyes led off with a home run and had a couple of hits. And, Sean Green had an RBI. The Mets ended up getting the victory that day. And great game on the back of John Mayne.
Yep, I remember that. I remember that game. I just remember getting a phone call from a friend of mine who was a Yankees fan that had an extra ticket because a relative of his was supposed to fly in from Florida to go, but couldn't make it to the game. So that relative just said, "Oh, if you know a Mets," said that to him, "If you know a Mets fan, just give it that ticket to a Mets fan for free." So as soon as the Mets had won that game, I get a phone call from him saying, "Hey, could I stop by your house tomorrow morning to drop off a ticket to get to Game 7?" And he made this call as soon as the Mets won that game. He informed me that I have a ticket to Game 7 of the NLCS. So I got this ticket, and I went, and I got to be at the Game 7 of the NLCS. But I was already at Game 1 of that NLCS because I had a partial plan back then. I used to be able to afford a partial plan back then, 2006. But I was at Game 7, but I ended up being at Game 7 unexpectedly, and unfortunately the outcome wasn't what I would have hoped. But that's still how I still never forgot what it was like at that game, and I'll never forget how how I've never seen Shea Stadium so quiet until like I saw like after that game ended.
Yeah, that was about as brutal as it could possibly be. I remember I had about 102 fever that day, and I still got dragged out to my buddy's house, literally dragged out of bed to see that. And I'll never forgive him for that because I would have rather just watched that alone in my room, that debacle of a game. But, we'll move on. We haven't had, unfortunately, I've never been to a playoff game. So hopefully when I finally do go to a playoff game, hopefully it's nothing like that game 7.
Yep.
But
Hopefully it plays out in a scenario where we're present when the Mets win a World Series. Hopefully that scenario plays out.
yeah, and unfortunately, that's not going to be this year. As we're sitting back watching, I don't know. I guess for some people it's been an exciting postseason, but and you know what, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I just can't get into the baseball playoffs right now, and part of the reason is because I guess our teams, the Mets, obviously for me and you, the Yankees for a lot of the people that watch our show, and for obviously our fellow New York. Unfortunately, baseball has kind of been out of the limelight since pretty early on this year. And, part of the whole Jets getting Rodgers thing definitely played a role in that. And a lot of hype on the football teams where the Giants were coming off that great year. So there's a lot of optimism with them. The Jets were having big expectations, so a lot of optimism. So it was much easier to disconnect from baseball earlier this year. But, hey, that's neither here nor there, Dan. The book is closed on baseball as far as I'm concerned in 2023. So let's talk a little football, here. Right?
Yep. And I can tell you, I'm still feeling it from that game. That I'm still upset at the referees. We should have had another chance at that at trying to get that touchdown, but the referees didn't do it. I was fuming. I mean, Mr. Malunigan was barking when I'm yelling at the TV that game. I had even said like when at the end of the first half when they didn't just go for the field goal, I was just fuming. I said this is gonna bite us in the ass because we didn't score that drive at the end of the first half, and I was right, and I was just. On and off during the game, of course, but like I said, Malunigan was barking, and my mom knew, it must be Daniel upset. Something happened in the Giants game that he was upset about, so she knew exactly why she was hearing Mr. Malunigan barking. My sister knew exactly why she was hearing Mr. Malunigan barking, because not many people realize it. When you're making noise around a dog just thinks you're another dog barking.
That's true. Just another dog making a lot of noise next to him. So, yeah, you're right, man. And I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. You mentioned the Giants take this loss up in Buffalo, which is where we'll be starting today. And Sunday night football game. I mean, let's be honest. The fact is that no matter what you want to say, I heard people giving the explanation, oh, well, the officials weren't going to give the Giants the same call 2 times in a row. My question to them is, why? If it's the right call, why would they not call it again? They should have called it. It was ridiculous they didn't call it. The defender is hanging off Darren Waller. That's obviously at least defensive holding, potentially even defensive pass interference. And so you're going to tell me that the Giants get screwed out of a win because the officials didn't want to, look bad, I guess, even though you're doing your job. So how do you look bad? But the officials would have had to, the officials look much worse not making the call than if they had made the call, right?
Yeah, exactly. They look horrible, and it's why I always say, don't let your daughters marry an umpire or a referee.
Yeah, it's true. That's the wise sage-like advice from Bobo, which I totally agree with, because you know, you have these officials, and I'm sorry, umpires in baseball, they're bad. We've seen a lot of bad umpiring. Obviously, the officials in hockey get it a lot too, as we'll talk about in a couple of minutes with the 2 waved off goals for the New York Rangers on Saturday night. That was ridiculous. But the NFL officials, in my opinion, are the absolute worst. Nobody inserts themselves into these games more than these officials. And not to mention, then the worst thing that I hate more than anything now is on all of these games on CBS and Fox and ESPN and wherever the football game is that week. Now they have this thing called the rules analyst, the rules expert, and it's a retired official like Gene Steratore or one of these washed up hacks that are up in the booth now, and all they do is defend the officials for every terrible call they make, or at least try to soften the blow. You very rarely, although shockingly, the only one I do remember them agreeing with or going against the officials with was the Sauce Gardner phantom holding call at the end of the Jets-Chiefs game a couple of weeks back. But for the most part, all these guys do is running damage control for, the officials on TV. What do you think about that, Dan? Because these guys don't serve any point except to do that, right?
Yeah, I just think it's stupid. Why do they need to have a referee, a former referee expert on that call? On all these calls need to be around. I think it's the dumbest thing to happen to football broadcasts.
Yeah.
That's maybe the second dumbest thing since Joe Buck calling Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that is true. I definitely agree with that. But now when you're looking at, this season for the Giants now, obviously we are at a point in the year where, the Giants kind of right now look buried. They're 1-5. That's a really, really tough hole to climb out of. Definitely not impossible. The Giants' second half schedule definitely eases up a bit as we mentioned on our Patreon show, which, by the way, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our Patreon. You can see all the information on the bottom of the screen. There we go. Please check that out on the bottom line.
Exactly. The bottom is subscribe. Yeah, definitely subscribe. It only costs the amount of money for a round trip on the subway.
Exactly. $5. $5 buckaroos. Come on. We appreciate all the support from everybody. Even if you're not subscribed, we appreciate your support because you're watching our video right now on YouTube. But we'd appreciate a little bit more if you give us that 5. So thanks everybody for everything and all of the continued support and checking out the show. But Dan, right now 1-5, Giants, a banged up team. Daniel Jones still not practicing. Coach Dayball said that Daniel is expected back this season, which I heard him say that today, and I was a little surprised because not the fact that Daniel Jones is going to be back, because I don't think we really expected him to be gone all season, but just the fact that they even had to say that Daniel Jones will be back this year would have me a little bit worried if I was a Giants fan, because I'd be looking around right now saying, oh, okay, well, who said that he wasn't going to be? You know what I mean? Like, we were told right off the bat that this was only going to be a short-term thing.
Yeah, exactly. The words of the great Chip Chipperson, that don't make no sense. we knew he'd be back. It's a matter of when. Unfortunately, it looks like next week he's not going to be back. I don't think he's going to be back this Sunday against the Washington Commanders. But I still expect that this game's going to be a very winnable game, and I feel if we don't win this game, it's like I expect the season to become a tanking year if we don't win this Sunday's game.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of Giant fans have been pointing to that. The Giants are one of the teams actually on the list, the short list that the top draft pick Caleb Williams said that coming out of USC this year, the top quarterback, he released and it's getting crazy with these teams now and these draft picks making these kind of demands, but Caleb Williams apparently has released a list of teams that he would accept being drafted by, which is just an insane statement to even make. But
I
one of
do
the
have
teams
to
on
say,
that list was but Dan, one of the teams on that list was the New York Giants. So if things do bottom out for the Giants this year, the possibility of having a top quarterback prospect in Caleb Williams is right there for you guys.
yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad of a compensation for that. Also, I do have to say one thing about people entering the draft making a picky about where they're drafted. I recall a certain player by the name of Eli Manning was like that. Apparently, was like worried because he didn't want to be in a horrible team, because we know if you look at historical, his father Archie Manning was probably a great quarterback prospect. Probably historically didn't benefit from being on bad teams. From what I saw in this, I watched this documentary, I think, about the Manning family, called, I think it was on ESPN. It was when those 30 for 30s. It was called Book of Manning, right? Mentioned that how Archie Manning just felt like he just played on bad teams, didn't it didn't play out well for him as would. So, and Eli wanted to make sure he was put in a position to win, and apparently they figured that the Giants would give him that chance, and I say it worked out pretty well, because we had those two championships, including that one that I will forever, that memory I will have with me forever, getting to see the Giants win a Super Bowl in person. So can't be that. So sometimes that does work out.
I agree with you, and actually, it's funny you bring that up. As a couple weeks ago, off air, I got to meet Eli, and he gave a whole little speech at the place where I work, and it was very cool. Got to take a picture with him. He's a very nice guy, but when he was giving his speech, he actually broke down, what kind of happened there, and Eli kind of really what it came down to is that he didn't trust the Chargers. And I don't blame him for that, because at that point, the Chargers, they already had Drew Brees, who they really weren't doing anything with. They had just drafted Ryan Leaf a couple of years before that, and that bottomed out. And the Chiefs were the Chargers were just a crappy organization at that time that could not get out of their own way. And so Eli just didn't want to be drafted by them, and the Chargers said they were taking him no matter what. Now, the difference in between what the two quarterbacks have done, though, is that this kid Caleb Williams just said, no, this is a list of 4 or 5 teams that I will play for. And I mean, Eli didn't want to play for the Chargers, but he didn't really shit on the other 29 teams, kind of like this guy's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This one's a bit. I guess this one's a bit more of a ridiculous one. Like, what the fuck? I guess we got a diva football prospect. I guess best way we can describe.
Exactly, and it's not we've never heard about that one before, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just to keep it rolling along here. Now we'll finish up with the Giants as next week. Now it's Giants and Commanders on Sunday. That'll be the only game for our little Patreon special. If you're keeping tabs, you can check us out immediately following that game, as we'll be giving all the Giants updates. Right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. And of course, like I said, normally we have these games as soon as both local teams have their games have ended. This one might be a couple of hours after the games ended, because around that same time I'm going to be visiting the Davy Mac Sports program, and of course I'll have the game on. I'll be looking on and off on my phone to see how the game's going on during the show, because I want to make sure I got up speed with everything that's happened, but because I'm going to be visiting the Davy Mac Sports program and the show films in New Jersey, so it'll be a little couple of hours until I get back home. We'll begin to broadcast once I get back home. It's going to be a couple of hours late, but at the same time, though, but even though we're late, you get a little compensation because you got a good reason why we'll start. We're going to start a little bit later than what the Patreon people will expect, because I am visiting the Davy Mac Sports program on the Sunday, and we gladly encourage you all to watch it and enjoy all the laughs and all the wild stuff Dave will say, and maybe some stuff I'll say on the show. And it's always a great time watching the show, and of course it's and you could definitely give his show a check out some of the latest episode of his show. Right, you could check out the latest episode of his show on YouTube after you've watched this.
You're right about that. So check out our good friend Davy Mac, the Davy Mac Sports Program. Eastside Dave, one of the greatest entertainers and guys out there. Please support him and subscribe to his Patreon if you haven't already, and subscribe to his YouTube channel if you haven't already, Eastside Dave TV. So check him out. As always, one of the greatest of all time, and gotta love his cast of characters over there too. That not only includes our the co-host of this show, Daniel Bobo Curlin, but great people like Roy Harder and Bobby Tamburo. Big A's involved in the mix too. I saw a bunch of great pictures from him with the IWF this past weekend. So definitely awesome stuff. Keep your eyes out for Davy Mac. No doubt about it. It's going to be awesome seeing Dan on there. And if you need your Bobo fix, go check Eastside Dave's show out on Sunday before we go live on Sunday night. And so just to keep it rolling along here, we'll look at the other team in MetLife as the Jets went out on Sunday. Much to my shock, it was a really good birthday present. If you saw our post game show on Patreon, as I was still kind of floating on air after that, the Jets upset the Eagles 20-14 at MetLife. Really, really a phenomenal game. I mean, I usually don't rewatch games. And I actually sat down and rewatched this game on the NFL Network the other night, and I still am shocked at how great this Jet defense was. And I don't take that word lightly either. This defense was great. For the first time this year, this defense has been very good, at times this year. But on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Jets defense was great. No doubt about that. And you could take 7 of those points off the board. Yeah, the final score was 20-14. The real final score was 20-7, because that first touchdown that the Eagles scored in the first drive of the game, the end of that 18 or 19 play drive where they capped it off by punching that touchdown in at the end, he never scored the touchdown. It was ruled down at the 1 yard line, and then we came back from commercial break, and it was magically 7-0 Eagles. So they still never showed. The game was played over 4 days ago. They still have not showed any definitive evidence that he was not down. They never showed any kind of close-ups. And the only thing they said was, they had angles that we haven't seen. Oh, okay. That makes sense to not show the audience the angles that you're talking about. But Dan, 20-17 win. We're trying to help our Giants friends out right now by kicking those Philadelphia bastards down a little bit for you guys. So seeing this 20-14 victory for the Jets, by the way, the first time we ever beat them. What's your takeaway from this game?
Well, for one thing, even though I didn't have any rooting interest in this game, it was pretty good to see the Eagles lose, especially when I'm seeing from on social media from every one of my social media peeps from Philadelphia, them all being all celebratory because the Phillies are in the playoffs. I'm seeing them all celebratory, and it makes it. It just makes me sad seeing that everyone all celebratory, and we're not involved in the playoffs this year. So it's like seeing that. So it was nice to kind of humble them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're right. I actually have a buddy of mine from my job he's a big Phillies fan. He's a big Eagles fan. And when I saw him today, actually, he looked at me and he put his fingers up like this, indicating 6 more wins. And that's what he said to me. He comes up to me and he goes, 6 more wins. And I was like, what are you talking about? The Jets have 11 games left. And he was like, I'm talking about the Phillies. And, the way I looked at it was, hey, in my mind, baseball has been over since July pretty much. So sorry if I'm not thinking baseball wise, but, it was definitely nice to rub it into our Philly friends a little bit for the Jets getting the win, because God knows the Philly fans were talking a lot of trash heading into this game, and nobody expected the Jets to hang in there. Even, I don't know if you noticed this, Dan, but at the beginning of this game, Fox gave such little respect to the Jets and Jets fans, and Eagles fans too, because I'm sure Eagles fans wanted to watch it too, that they were showing the end in a split screen of the Browns and Niners game. Like, look.
Yeah. I was looking at that, and I was just probably in my head, I could hear the cursing coming out of every Jets fan I know at the start of that game. Like, I have to admit, I'm saying, man, I'm sure every Jets fan watching this is upset and probably complaining right now about this. And I actually was during that game. I'm taking a look on I have like multiple things going on, because I have the Jets game on the tablet. There's my laptop screen set up on a table. Then of course it's on the TV. So I'm just looking at social media, and I'm seeing a lot of Jet fans complain about that, the way they handled the start of that broadcast. So yeah, I knew probably a lot of Jet fans were upset about that.
Yeah, that was ridiculous, man. I mean, what a way to just show complete disrespect to two of your biggest football markets, Philadelphia and New York. We want to watch our game. We waited all day. It's the 4:25 start. Obviously, I guess it's not all day because it's not Sunday night football. But, we waited through all those 1 o'clock games, and now you're still showing us San Francisco and Cleveland. Look, I'm not going to say it wasn't a great game, because it was. But show that in San Francisco and Cleveland, not New York and Philadelphia. You could show it to the rest of the country if you want. But in New York and Philadelphia, we want to watch the Jets against the Eagles. So come on, Fox, wake up. Let's that's why I always prefer seeing the Jets play on CBS as opposed to Fox, because Fox has no respect for the Jets, and apparently has no respect for Philadelphia and the Eagles either, because that was a complete joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we said, that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, that was dumb on their part, and probably I guess you could say that maybe that I'm saying it right here. I guess officially, Robert here has put Fox Sports on the Shizer list.
Definitely on the Shizer list. They are definitely the ones that we despise her. No doubt about it. Fox dropped the ball on that one. But hey, you know what? If the Jets keep winning when they're on Fox, maybe I won't hate them so much anymore, and I could take them off the Shizer list. So, which by the way is a wink and a nod to our good buddy Eastside Dave. Yeah, Dan. So now we go. The Jets beat the Eagles. They're 3-3 now, going into the bye week, and then the Jets now, we can sit on this win for a week or two and just enjoy it, kick our feet up. The Giants are taking on the Commanders, but as soon as you guys get done with that, it's going to be a big matchup at the end of October. Jets, Giants, October 29th at MetLife Stadium. The Giants are the home team, so the team's going to be decked out in blue. The stadium is going to be decked out in blue. The crowd is going to be blue and green. There's going to be a lot of interest in this game.
Yep, exactly. And we're going to have a nice little Patreon exclusive live camera feed of us watching the game. I am gonna hop on an LARR to watch this game with my co-host, and you're gonna get to see our live reactions to this game as each
Absolutely,
moment
man.
happens. Yep.
Yeah.
This one, if you're gonna only watch one Patreon, and we do encourage you to watch all our Patreon exclusive broadcasts, but if there's one Patreon broadcast you absolutely do not want to miss live, this is the one you want to watch live.
Yeah, you got that right, man. We'll have our obviously live reactions and everything, and yeah, we'll do a little halftime thing, and then yeah, it's going to be a really fun game either way. You know, obviously the Jets aren't going to be at full strength at that time. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is still a little ways away, maybe a little bit closer than we think, as we've discussed. Shockingly, let's before we even move on, Dan, obviously, because we talked about this on Patreon, but let's discuss it a little bit on our on the regular show now. What did you think of those videos of Aaron Rodgers throwing on the sideline of the game on Sunday against Philly? I mean, this is a guy that was 32 days away from his surgery at this point. Now, I heard a doctor saying earlier this week that guys that are usually that close to the surgery, only about a month out, they're riding around on those carts around. Like this guy was walking around with barely a limp, throwing the ball. I mean, Dan, what do you think? There's a legit chance this guy's coming back, and he might be coming back relatively soon.
Well, for one thing, I got to credit the athleticism of Aaron Rodgers to be able to somehow his body or whatever he managed to do, his recovery time is speeding up, and I'm starting to wonder if he just decided to just go in montage training, and I guess he's just decided to just crank up the fires inflamed by Dragon Force, and he's going full montage training. I bet to quote a line from regular show, and we know how that is. The faster the song, the more powerful the montage is, and that must be a very powerful training montage he's going through.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Or maybe it's like, have you ever seen the movie Grandma's Boy?
Yeah, I remember that movie.
And in that movie, there's that character JP who talks about how he wants to have his legs removed and replaced with metal legs. It's a risky operation, but he thinks it's worth it. I think Aaron Rodgers has metal legs. That's the only way that he's got robot legs, man, because how the hell else is this guy doing that? I can't believe it. Just listening to these doctors reacting to what this guy is doing is crazy, man. And just seeing him on Pat McAfee's show on Tuesday for Aaron Rodgers Tuesday was really awesome, too, because it was another close insight of Rodgers and the work he's doing, and coming out for the game on Sunday, which was great to see him on the sideline. It's crazy, man. I mean, obviously he's not going to be back for our Week 9 matchup with the Jets and the Giants, but I said it on our Patreon show, and I'm saying it right here, right now, on the record. I don't know why, but this date is in my head, December 17th, week whatever that is, week 15, I think it is, week 15 or 16, whatever it is. Aaron Rodgers, December 17th, will be playing for the Jets in Miami. Don't ask me why. I don't have any inside information. That's just, for some reason, that is burning inside of me right now, and I feel like that's a legit chance. Dan, when I say that to you right now, do you think that's crazy, or do you think that's a legit chance?
From what I'm seeing and what I've been hearing about his recovery process, I think it's a pretty good chance he could return, and I just have a feeling there is a number of Jet fans that are buying tickets to that game in anticipation of potentially seeing Aaron Rodgers return. In addition to, of course, some Jet fans that are living in it, because there's a lot of New Yorkers living in Florida, so I'm sure every Jets fan in South Florida is buying tickets to that game, anticipating that as well.
No doubt about it, buddy. Don't think that I haven't been checking out some flights already and seeing what the tickets look like. Because if I don't know if what my crazy brain is telling me right now is true, my ass is going to be down in Miami on December 17th. I'll tell you that much.
Just remember to pack the right sunscreen this time.
You know, what's it called? Yeah, so I'm telling you, I got a really, really good feeling that December 17th in Miami, we're going to be seeing that. You know, hey, at least it's something to look forward to. But the funny thing is that right now, the Jets don't really need any false hope. They're 3-3, and as long as they take care of business, whenever Aaron Rodgers can come back, they should be relevant. So, you know, there's no reason to rush. Let him take his time. And as long as Zach Wilson doesn't, you know, completely shit out like he did against New England, the Jets should be in pretty good shape, right?
Yeah, exactly. As long as they could still be in contention to that point, they should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, exactly, man. And so, you know, you see I got my Rangers jersey on right now. We got the Rangers backdrop. So you know what, Dan? Let's talk a little New York Rangers hockey, as they had the opener at Madison Square Garden the other night, and the Rangers beat the Arizona Coyotes 2-1. Really tight game. They scored the early goal. The Coyotes evened it up midway through the game, and then right near the end, Vinny Trocheck puts the Rangers on top for a 2-1 victory. 2-1, you know, so far on the season as well. They won 2-1. They're 2-1 on the season. They opened up with a really dominating victory in Buffalo, then dropped a tough one to Columbus. You know, me and you discussed it with a couple of waved off goals. Through 3 games in the season so far, Dan, what do you like that you see from the Rangers, and what do you don't like that you see from the Rangers?
Well, so far I'm liking what I'm seeing. I just think that game against the Columbus, I just feel there was too many soft turnovers. I feel like set us up for what was, well, hopefully that's as far as we'll go when saying that the worst game of the season was that game, so of a young season so far. But so far, I think we're great so far, and I just from what I've been seeing, it looks like Alexi Lafreniere is going to have a breakout season this year. I don't know why. It's just something in my gut. It's just saying that he knows that this contract was just a bridge deal, and he just knows that he's got to earn that money, and he's got to, if he wants to get them to show him the money, he's got to have a show me the money kind of season, and he's motivated by that. It just looks like.
I agree. I mean, he's really going to have to step up that level of production. I think he's looked good so far. You know, another guy that has looked really good so far is Chris Kreider. Looks like he hasn't missed a beat, and it looks like they're trying to really recapture, you know, a lot of that. They're trying to just, you know, straighten themselves out pretty much. And when you have, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. They were trying to recapture that really good power play that they had. You know, Chris Kreider scored an insane amount of power play goals. I think it was something like 27 or 28 that first year. That, you know, Gerard Gallant was the head coach, and they went to the Eastern Conference Final. However, last year he dropped all the way down to 8. You know, when you go from being that much of a difference maker on the power play to, you know, scoring a third of those goals basically, or less than a third even, you know, it's time to get back on point and do what works. And it looks like that's what the Rangers are doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're really stick what works, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And hopefully they keep that up.
Yeah, you're right, man. And as long as the defense plays good, and everything. What do you think? The first couple of games. What do you think about Peter Laviolette's effect on the team? New head coach, first couple of games here, trying to get these guys to play his system. One of the things that I've really liked was that obviously we heard from the previous coach Gallant. We always heard that he wanted the Rangers to play more of a north-south game than an east-west game. Now, what that means is that you're driving towards the net head on instead of, trying to be fancy and go to your left and go to your right and, or AKA east and west. And you just try to, do your best fancy maneuvers, which usually comes from these skill level guys like the Rangers have. Laviolette's trying to get them just to drive the net. Don't, the fancy stuff will come because of your talent, but don't go out of your way to do it. Don't start doing that east and west crap. And I feel like Gerard Gallant tried to get them to buy into that, but they never fully did. And what I've loved about Laviolette so far is that when you see the Rangers coming to the bench, a lot of the time, keep your eye out at Laviolette will be yelling at them, north, north, north. Trying to communicate to the guys, don't forget, we're going north. Go to the goal. Don't mess around. None of this other crap. So I feel like him driving that home and really making that a sticking point is a really good thing for the Rangers because they really did get a little too skill happy these last couple of years.
Yeah, I think so far it's working good. Laviolette's brought that credibility to this team, and I expect this team to have big things. I'm expecting at least Eastern Conference Finals from this team.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, we're a long way from that, but I don't disagree with you for having the high expectations for this team because, when you look at the kind of guys the Rangers have on this team, I mean, if you get what you expect out of Zibanejad and Kreider and Panarin and Adam Fox, right, and all your top guys, if those guys do what they're supposed to do, and obviously Igor in that mix too, then all you're really going to need is just a couple of these other guys to step up and make this team one of, if not the best teams in the league. You know what I mean? Because if like you mentioned, Dan, if Lafreniere comes out and let's just say he joins that group as one of the top offensive guys for the Rangers, like if we start putting Lafreniere's name next to guys like Zibanejad and Kreider and Panarin and Trocheck and those type of guys, then the Rangers are going to be in such a good spot because they're really going to have that value going through the lineup if Lafreniere's, producing as well. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. I expect that if that happens, look out. This team's going to be a real contender for the cup if Lafreniere can add on to that to the numbers being put up by the rest of the team.
Yeah, exactly, man. And we'll keep it rolling along here right now. I also, before we move on from hockey, I did want to tip my cap to the Islanders. The Islanders did start off the season now with their second straight win. Arizona did not have a fun trip to New York as they scored one total goal. They lost 2-1 to the Rangers and 1-0 to the Islanders. I'm sure their goaltender is not happy about that. But, hey, there's nothing you can do when your team's not scoring goals. And the Islanders are a good, sound defensive team. They went out 2-0 so far. What are your thoughts on the Islanders? Dan, do you think that this is a playoff team?
I feel so far this team looks like they're going to be – I say they're at least going to be a playoff team this year. They do sure look like a playoff team from what I've been seeing some highlights so far.
Yeah, they're definitely in that mix, no doubt about it. I think the Devils obviously are a team to be reckoned with. We know that the Rangers obviously are going to be in that mix too. I think both of those teams are probably going to be in the top 3 of the division, probably with a team like the Carolina Hurricanes. The Islanders are probably going to be fighting for a wild card spot. In my opinion, and anything can happen. The Islanders have a very good defensive team and a very good goaltender, so anything can happen if both those things just take off this year. And maybe the Islanders get a Vezina level goaltender playing at which Sorokin is a hell of a goalie, so you can't really downplay that too much. But yeah, I agree. I expect the Islanders to be in that playoff mix this year, and they're definitely a tough, well coached team. And I just hope we don't play them in the playoffs, because even if the Rangers win, I'll be tearing my hair out the whole time.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Believe me, that one will be too stressful of a playoffs, going back and forth with my Uncle Mike.
Yeah, and at least when the last time it happened in '94, the Rangers just wiped the floor with the Islanders, so it wasn't even close. You didn't have to worry about it. But man, with these two defensive teams, the Rangers and Islanders, these 2-1 games, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and as we'll keep it rolling along here, Dan, I did want to touch real quick on this before we finish up with some baseball real quick. Obviously, Knicks Celtics starting up next week. That's the beginning of the regular season. A week from today, I also have on right here the Knicks playing a preseason game against the Wizards tonight. So, what are your feelings about the Knicks right now? I mean, there's a lot of things going on with them. They made a few tweaks to the team. They still got Thibodeau in charge. Coming into this season, Dan, we just talked about it for the Islanders. Same thing for the Knicks, the other blue and orange team. Are you, expecting a playoff type year out of this team, or do you think they're going to take a step back or two?
I think this team is going to take a step forward. I expect them to one up what they did last year. Last year they got to the second round. I expect them to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They need to. I feel they're going to take this team up a notch.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right. For me, I like the core of the Knicks team, minus one guy, Julius Randle, and I know that's a crazy thing to say, as Randle has had some of the best games any Knicks player has had over the last couple of years from a statistical standpoint. But I don't know, man. Julius Randle, to me, just is not that guy that's going to take the Knicks to where they need to be. He seems to come up small in big game moments in the playoffs specifically. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about Julius Randle. I hope he takes this season and shoves everything I just said right down my throat. I would love nothing more to be wrong, but everything I've seen out of Julius Randle so far, I don't know. I don't know if he's the winner that the Knicks need as their 1A guy. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. I just feel once again this team needs to be right there and hopefully get that one piece they need. Hope when this year when it gets to that trading deadline, they're still right in this race, right at that deadline, that they could just get that one player that gets them over the hump. I feel like the way this season needs to play out for the Knicks to get to where they hope to be.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point. I think as long as the Knicks hang in there, the Knicks probably aren't going to be the number 1 seed or anything like that around the time of the trade deadline. But as long as they're hanging in there and they're in a playoff spot, man, I agree with you. I could see the Knicks going out there and trying to make a splash because they do have a lot of draft capitals, still. So, it's definitely a possibility. So, 1 week from today, the NBA season will be kicking off here in New York. And just to round things out here with a little baseball now, Dan, before we call it a day, I've been seeing a lot of interest the Mets' way coming in Craig Counsell, the Milwaukee Brewers manager right now, who also worked with David Stearns there. He was handpicked by David Stearns. What do you think about that? Do you think there's smoke where this fire is right now, or there's fire where this smoke is?
I think it would not surprise me if he is the next Mets manager. I feel like David Stearns knows that he wants to bring in this. This is who he wants to bring in. This guy, I feel, has a lot of manager credibility. Getting a team like Milwaukee to several years of being contenders. I mean, he was manager in Milwaukee when they were one win short of making it to the World Series, and he managed to get the most out of a team that was an organization that has a very limited budget. Now we'll get to see what this guy can do with a team that has the budget of Steve Cohen.
That's true. And you make a good point about that team that fell one game short of the World Series in 2018. Because if you ask me, based strictly on a talent level, I mean, look, that team did have very clutch hitting. They had the NL MVP in Christian Yelich, and they had an A+++ bullpen. But that rotation that they were running out there, man, and that was before Woodruff and Corbin Burns really kicked it into gear and turned into the aces that they were. But man, to get that far with that suspect of a starting pitching staff, you really have to give it to Counsell and you really have to give it to Stearns. So yeah, if we could take that ingenuity here and then supply them with a top-notch budget that only Uncle Stevie Cohen can provide, I think we're going to be seeing some good times ahead in Queens, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. We could be seeing Rick Counsell linked to some of hopefully what'll be certain Mets memories that'll stick with me years from now. Hopefully this guy will be finally the guy that'll be able to bring that memory to us.
It's true. Maybe a couple of years from now, we'll be talking about a game, like me and you were talking about, Game 5 of the 99 NLCS. We're talking about Game 6 of the 2006 NLCS. Well, you know what those two games had in common? They were both followed by a crushing season-ending loss that prevented us from winning a championship that year. So hopefully Stevie Cohen and David Stearns, and if Craig Counsell is the manager, can help provide us with that elusive victory. Right, Dan?
Yep, that elusive championship. I badly want to see it happen while I'm alive, and also I want my mom to be able to see it. And can't forget Mr. Malunigan. I mean,
exactly, and at least,
right?
Yeah, and Mr. Malunigan's never even seen one.
Yeah, right. I want to be able to see. Hopefully, I want him to be around, especially for that time when the Mets win the World Series. So I could carry him and walk victoriously down my block, and high-fiving. It's high-fiving every Met fan who jumps outside and they're celebrating outside after that championship.
No, you're right, man. You're right. And I think that's just about going to do it for us today now. But before we get out of here, though, I did want to get your opinion real quick. We see Rangers Astros in the ALCS, Phillies Diamondbacks in the NLCS. Obviously, the Astros are up in the ALCS right now. The Phillies are up 2-0 in the NLCS, coming off an embarrassing 10-0 victory. But right now, what are your thoughts, Dan? If you had to look at the World Series matchup right now, who do you think it's going to be?
I just have a feeling that it looks like it's going to be a Texas-Philly matchup as horribly as I don't want to see the Phillies in the World Series. I just feel like when I'm looking at this NLCS matchup, it just looks like Arizona just looks overmatched against Philly. Like they don't have the pitching And I just
Yeah.
actually I have a feeling that Texas is might probably win that World Series. They look like they have enough pitching to beat a team like the Phillies, which is a key thing of the cornerstone of every great championship team is pitching.
Oh, no doubt about it. And, you know, obviously, one of the things that I have really noticed is that there's a lot of, ex Mets and even a couple of ex Yankees in these playoffs now. Obviously, Tommy Pham with the Diamondbacks, and we have, uh, you know, Scherzer with the Rangers and Verlander with the Astros. Now, Scherzer returned tonight. He made his first start since he got injured at the end of the regular season, and things did not go well for Max Scherzer in Texas. He was going up against Christian Javier of the Astros, and even though he got through a relatively easy first inning, nothing, he gave up a 3 spot in the second, and then gave up another one in the third. So right now, the Astros are teeing off on former Met Max Scherzer.
All I could say is that I could easily say to anyone I know from who's a fan, who's a Texas fan, we've been through this same postseason disappointment with Max Scherzer. Trust me, we both been through that last year, that wild card game, at game 1 of the wild card series. Especially the fact that not only did we go through it, it happened right in front of me. I was present in the stadium for that. I was disappointed in person.
And don't forget too that that final series against the Braves last year, where the only pitcher of our top 3 starters that showed up was Jacob deGrom. Everybody wants to knock deGrom. deGrom actually threw a pretty good game that day. 6 innings, 2 runs. Scherzer got smacked, and Bassett got smacked. So, everybody wants to malign deGrom, but he was the only one that showed up. And by the way, the only one of our pitchers that won a playoff game too. So,
exactly.
Take that for what you will.
Yep,
But
exactly.
Dan, I think, so I'm sorry. Were you gonna say anything?
Yep, exactly. And it still feels weird that he left us.
Yep, it's true. And he could, if the Rangers win a championship this year, he could win a championship the same way that Mickey Callaway won a championship when he was injured with the 2002 Anaheim Angels. So, that's another.
I know, but it's just going to seem sad seeing deGrom with a World Series ring from someone else other than us.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
It's just sad seeing that he couldn't do that with us.
Yeah, it's very true, man. And so I think that's just about going to do it for us today, everybody. But before we get out of here, Dan, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure. My Twitter account. You can follow me on Twitter, Bobo103NYC. You can see there right below my name, my Twitter handle. You could also follow me. You could also follow me on Instagram, Bobo718DK, and which is also the same handle on Threads. Also I have a YouTube account. It's one word, Daniel Curlin. You can follow me. When I post stuff on YouTube, it's on there.
Exactly. So go out of your way to check all of Dan's content out there. And don't forget to check him out on the Davey Mack Sports program this Sunday afternoon, too. Stay tuned to our social media and Davey Mack, too, if you want to check him out at Eastside Dave for all updates of when that's going to be going down. Probably around 2 or 3 on Sunday afternoon is when Dave usually does it. So make sure to check that out. And like we said earlier, if you haven't subscribed to his Patreon, check that out, too. You can also subscribe to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/Best Seat in the House Podcast. You can also check us out on Instagram at Best Seat in the House Podcast, on Twitter at BSith_podcast. And you check me out there on Twitter as well at my last name, Cramer and Y. So thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in and checking out all of our stuff. We really appreciate all the support, as always. And so for the Best Seat in the House podcast, this is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. I'm Rob Cramer, and we'll catch you next week